I finally got a 3D scanner. I went with the RevoPoint POP 2 because of the Kickstarter. The price couldn't be beat. I'm glad I did because it's helping me to archive my mask collection, things that I made years ago that are going to begin rotting away within the next few years. I can at least keep them archived for digital safekeeping, I guess. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I took a scan of the Jason mask, the hockey mask, which I had to do in 2 scans to get the front and the back because I couldn't get it all in one, and how easy it is to stitch them together in RevoPoint Studio. In the RevoScan software, I couldn't find a way to actually open my scan and continue it. I got this exception. I don't even know if it's possible, but I couldn't get it to work. And I tried it with this one, and I don't know what that meant. So I just started a new scan, scanned the front and scanned the back, and then I imported them into the RevoStudio. The first thing I had to do was get rid of the extra stuff. I used a USB power bank to prop this one up and scan it. So I had to remove that part with the isolation tool. But first I want to simplify it to make things go a little bit quicker. There's just way too many vertexes in this point cloud. Now I'm using isolation. Tried on the high setting to try to get rid of that, but it didn't work. So I'm going to try the advanced settings. I'm not sure exactly what these do, so I just changed them. Radius to 32, lowered the angle down to 10, and bumped up the isolation rate. And it didn't work. So one more try. The only thing I changed this time was the isolation rate. I bumped it up to 40. And that did it. You can also use the lasso tool and things like that, but I find this easier. Then you don't accidentally get a part of your model cut out. But you can see the dark area here is the parts that didn't scan on the back side. The white parts are the parts that did scan. First I'm going to do the overlap detection. First I'm going to do it on far. You see all the red spots. Delete those. I'm going to do it again on near because it seems to find more. I think it skips the near ones when you're on far, and vice versa. See, there's a lot more, so delete those. Now I'm going to go into the alignment and add float file. To me, I guess that just means the second file that you're fusing together. Float file didn't make any sense to me, but here's the second one on the right. It's got a bunch of extraneous stuff, but we'll get rid of that. We can just ignore it for now, and nothing will get fused together as far as that extra stuff. I tried this once by feature and it did not work, so you pretty much have to use mark points and hit the marker button and set your mark points. 2, 3, or 4 mark points would probably work. I don't know. I don't know if more means better, but I went ahead and did a bunch of them. You basically line up points on each side that match. That way it knows what to look at to fuse these 2 models together. And it seemed to work out pretty well here. Just keep doing edges of some of these circles because there's not a whole lot of features on this model. Like I said, this is probably overkill, but who knows? More of them might make it difficult. I'm not even sure. I didn't really experiment. I just went ahead. This is my first time doing this. I just went ahead and added a bunch of points all around the model. Then hit apply and let it do its magic. And it looks like it did a pretty good job. There's some openings on the edge of the mask, but that'll be fixed up when we mesh it with the fix holes or repair holes, fill holes, whatever it's called. And all this extra stuff all around, we'll use the isolation tool again. I'm going to leave the settings the same as they were last time, hit apply, and voila. Now I'm going to use simplify because I'm at 1.5 million, over 1.5 million vertexes again, so I'm going to use simplify again, bring it down to about 0.4. That brings us down to 950,000-ish. Then I'm going to do the overlap detection again because it should find some on the back for the second piece that was added. It was merged together. Just clean up a little bit basically. I don't know how much good the smoothing tool actually does, but I'm going to use it again. Now we can mesh it. Now the problem here with this model, if I use the basic settings with fill hole, it's going to fill in all these little holes, and even the eyes sometimes. So I had to go into advanced. I'm going to bump the quality up as far as it can go and knock down that whole area ratio to about 0.05 rather. Then we'll give that a go and see what it does. And that did it. It all looks pretty good. It filled in the edges that were missing. It didn't fill in any of my holes that I need to keep. Now I'm going to do smooth again. Like I said, I don't know how much it actually smooths, but we'll be doing that in Blender next, making it really smooth. But we'll do it here again just for the heck of it. And then I'm going to simplify it again because our vertex count is 3.2 million. And the nice thing about this is it shows you the vertex count based on your vertex percentage. So you have an idea of where you're going to be based on what percentage you make. Actually, I'm going to go to 20% because it can be lowered a lot. It's not a very complex model. And remember, it doesn't really work this fast. I'm speeding it up so that we don't have to sit here and wait for the spinning circles. It also depends on the power of your computer, obviously. And now we had a vertex count about 640,000-ish. I'm going to go ahead and do another smooth, like I said twice already. I don't think it does much. Now I can export it. I'm going to use Object. Probably use anything. I'm going to export to Object so I can import it into Blender. So now I'll open Blender, start a new general file, and then import the OBJ file. And sometimes this takes a minute to load. Now the tricky part is getting it to the center. This black square is my build plate representation, just to give you an idea of the size of the model compared to printing it. I'm going to set the origin to the geometry of the model. And somehow my 3D cursor is not in the world origin, so we're going to put that back. Now I'll put the selection to the cursor, which is the model itself, but it still needs to be rotated into place. So I'll just move from different angles, front and back, top, and rotate it accordingly to where I want it. Now I can hide the build plate so that's not in my way. And you see how bumpy it is? We're going to fix that using two different methods. First I'm going to make a copy of the object, hide the original. I'll rename the copy to Sculpt Smooth because we're going to use the Sculpt tool to smooth this, which is real easy. If you don't know how to sculpt in Blender, it doesn't matter. You're just using the Smooth tool here. And by default, the Smooth tool can be used with any brush just by holding down the Shift key. You hold Shift and you brush anywhere on the model and it'll smooth. But since I'm doing the whole model, I'm just going to go ahead and select the Smooth tool over here on the left. Then I'm going to bump up the radius because I want to cover a lot of ground in one stroke. Now if you have the strength too high, it might distort a little bit. On this 1.7 seems to be a good range. You can see it's smoothing out nicely. I'm just going to go over the whole model. If you go over one area too much, that's where to start distorting some, taking out more than you probably want. So just do it easily. You can go over the same area more than once to smooth out even further. Just make sure to get the entire object, your whole model, as smooth as you want. You see that already looks 100% better. You can even do the inside if you feel like it. The inside, you know, not really seen if you're actually printing one of these to wear, but it doesn't hurt, right? Then just going over some areas I might have missed or anything I want smoother. And I'm just kind of running through this. I've already done this once and spending more time on it. I'm just doing this one for the sake of the video. Once you're satisfied, you can just go back to the layout mode. Now I'm going to hide that one and make another copy. I want to show you the quad remesh tool. This one is a paid add-on, but in my opinion, well worth it. I use it a lot. There's a free version you can use. 30-day trial. I recommend trying it. For models like this, it does a great job. Might not do the best on more complicated models. I used all the default settings. You can mess with these settings, learn them more for your particular model. But right now you see I got well over 1.2 million faces. So I'm going to adjust the quad count. I'm going to take it down quite a bit because, as I said, it's not a complicated model, so I'm going to make it 8,000. Leave all the settings the same as defaults, then just hit remesh it. Give it a minute to finish and it shows you the progress down here. Once it's done, it'll create a new object with the name of your object preceded by retopo underscore. And as you can see, it looks like a really good mesh. It makes everything quads, nice and even as it can anyway. And it just looks good. And as you can see, it smooths it right out too. And if you want these edges even smoother, you can go back into the sculpting mode and smooth them up some more. Now if you used a higher quad count, it might not be this smooth because it would probably try to follow that topology. But using a lower quad count, it made it nice and smooth, which is basically our objective here. Now after that's done, I'm going to go into the 3D print add-on and check it to make sure it's manifold. And we can find other issues too, but the main issue when it comes to 3D printing is making sure that it's manifold. Just select the object you want to check, then hit check all. And then it'll show you right here all the things that it finds. I'm not even sure what non-flat faces and thin faces really mean, but if you go into edit mode and then click on one of these, it'll show you where they are. You can see that highlighted one up here. My only guess is that it doesn't completely follow the topology, is what makes it non-flat, but it's still a quad. So I'm okay with it. I'm just going to leave it as is. As mentioned, the thing you want to overcome is non-manifold. Just make sure it's manifold for 3D printing. Thin faces, I'm not sure what that is either. You see down here it says report is out of date, rerun check at the bottom. That means I did some editing since the last check, so I have to hit the check all button again. Now these thin faces, I'm going to see if I can figure out what those are by zooming in on them. And it looks like we have a piece floating in space. So I'm going to select it all and delete it. First I got to go into X-ray mode so I can select everything in that little piece. Then just delete those faces. Get rid of that piece, and that's good to go. And we'll check all again. Now all we got left is that one non-flat face. The overhang faces you don't have to worry about. That's basically telling you how many overhangs you're going to have that are going to need support. But that's typical with any 3D print. And that's really all there is to it with the quad remesher. Now we can export this. You can do a STL. And you want to make sure you hit selection only. If you don't do that, it'll export everything that's in your project. And I always click apply modifiers just in case I have any modifiers going. I don't have any applied right now, but this will apply them on the export so that they're done. Now I'll load IdeaMaker to see what it looks like in the slicer. Now it looks rather low poly because it kind of is, but you can see we got non-manifold edges, 0, that's what we want. I think this would print fine, but if you want it prettier, we can go back into Blender and add a subdivision. So with the object selected, you can either go over here to modifiers or hit Control 1 or Control 2 based on how many subdivisions you want. I'm going to start with 2. But if you want to just use the modifier wrench over here, just hit that, add modifier, and then subdivision surface. Then you can adjust how many subdivisions you want by the levels viewport. We're going to go with 2. Now I'm not going to apply it here, I'll apply it on the export with the apply modifier selection. Now I'll just go into IdeaMaker and reload the model. See what it looks like now. Now that's pretty super smooth. I think we could probably get away with 1 subdivision. So let's go back, change this to 1, and then export it again. STL, selection only, apply a modifier checked. IdeaMaker, reload model. I think that'll print smoothly, and if you're concerned you can leave it at 2 if you're doing this too. I would be okay with that. It makes a smaller file size easier to work with. And the print time estimate from IdeaMaker was pretty accurate. It was around 24 hours. The holes along the mast didn't need any support, and it printed up pretty good in my opinion. Got to remove a bunch of supports. With my settings, these supports are fairly easy to remove by hand. Now that file is acceptable for FDM printing if your printer is big enough, but I want to do one in resin too. So in order for that, I'm going to have to go and split the model because my Saturn is not tall enough to fit the entire mask. So I'm going to use 3D Builder. If you haven't used 3D Builder for your STL editing, you really should try it. It's easy, it's fast, it does a good job. It's a little bit easier to use than Mesh Mixer. So just open it, load an object, the one that you're looking to work with. I'm going to load the quad remesh exported file. Hit import file. Now down here in the right bottom, if it says that there's problems, click it and it'll auto repair everything, and it usually does a really good job. But since this one's already been repaired, it's manifold, it's all good to go. No errors. So now I'm going to go to edit, make sure I select the object, hit split. I'm going to split it somewhere in the middle, somewhere that's not on any holes. And make sure you hit keep both up here at the top. Otherwise it'll discard 1/2, then hit split. And now we got 2 pieces. And the easiest way to export these, because it won't let you do one at a time, like right clicking and export it, you know, and whatnot. Basically just delete one of them and then save as. And I always work with 3MF format. File sizes are smaller and it's just as good. But if you want to do STL, just hit your drop down menu here and select STL. I'm going to save this as bottom. Then when that's done, I'm basically just going to hit Control Z to undo to get the deleted part back. Then select the bottom part and delete that one. Now this one's floating in air, so I'm going to drop it to the plate. Go to Object, hit Settle, and then it'll settle down to the bottom based on what part is facing the plate, if that makes sense. Now I can say this one has the top, and again I'm using 3MF. Now I'm going to load up Lychee Slicer and import the bottom one first. Now the bottom one I didn't drop to the plate. That's no problem. We'll just do it here. Under Rotate, we'll do On Plate and click on the cut portion. And then that will bring it down to the plate flat. It fits just barely. But on the Saturn, the height will not reach. It's just too tall for the height of the Saturn. That's why it had to be split. I use automatic supports and then add or remove based on where I think the support should go. All these supports in the front, really unnecessary. I don't know why it even adds them there. So I'm just going to go and delete all those. Auto supports are far from perfect in most slicers, but it's a good starting point. It makes a little bit less work in my opinion. But I think I went overboard with these supports. I probably could have used a lot less. But since I wasn't sure, I just went ahead and ran it, and it printed. Now I'm just going to add them everywhere where I think they should be or could help. I'm still no expert on resin printing supports. It is kind of an art. Naturally, we want to use as little support as possible for saving resin and less cleanup. I'm going to add some at the top of these holes just to be sure that there's no failures there. The last thing I like to use is bracings, and it adds a lot of them. I think they help, but like I said, I'm no pro. I may be using the pro version, but I'm no pro. Now I can export it to a 3D file. I haven't used my resin printer in quite a while, so I'm going to trust these settings, but I am going to bump up the exposure time just a little bit because I had problems with the model breaking loose from the supports in the last print I did. I do remember that much. And now I'm going to export it to my USB stick, let it render. And we're going to kind of skip through this part, but the top half is the same as doing the bottom. I'm going to drop it to the plate. Once it's all green like that, you know it's touching the plate. And then do the supports, export, and print. And then here are the prints coming off of my Saturn printers. I printed them both at the same time, and they came out really good. If you want one of these smooth and beautiful, resin printing is the way to go. The only problem is you have to reassemble them, which is a little bit of work, but probably worth it. Put it in the Wash and Cure Plus, wash them up. And these are the two parts together. Like I said, they're going to need some filler, glue, sanding on the seam and whatnot to make it pretty. And that's the final product. This is the PETG printed mask next to the original. And this is what's possible with the RevoPoint POP 2.